The power of index annuities, a more secure way of building part of your retirement income. What exactly does that mean when you're building your retirement income? One of the things that I find too often in working with thousands of clients over the years is that most people, number one, don't have a plan to get there, or they have some kind of fogginess or confusion. In other words, they don't know how much it's going to take for them to actually have a comfortable retirement, and how would that look as far as income. One of the biggest fears that people face today is that when they get there with whatever savings amount they have that they've saved over their, say, 20, 30-year career and working in corporate, is that money going to last them for the rest of their life? And the other question is, what if another 2008 happens, or another 2000 and 2003 happens? How is it going to affect your retirement? And can you stomach that? So a lot of people have a lot of uncertainty. And so this is where fixed index annuities come in, where it could provide that foundation or that peace of mind, those guarantees that people are looking for when it comes to that retirement phase of your life. A lot of people talk about getting great returns or maybe thinking about taxes, but how about income? Let's talk about income. So let's go ahead and dive into this, because an index annuity can be a great part of that solution. But before we get into those details, I want you guys to think about certain things when it comes to your retirement. Number one is the uncertainty and stress that people are feeling. You don't have to look far to see that. You could ask people that are in retirement or that are about to retire and how they feel about their retirement. Most people don't have the time, training, or temperament to manage their own brokerage accounts, or to even manage their own 401ks for that matter. In fact, most people, when they get into the corporate world, they're told by an HR person, bubble here, bubble there, have a great career. And if you're like most, time flies by, and that you're planning on going back and really trying to do some legwork or research on how your 401k works and how the different mutual funds within the portfolios work and the fees, etc. But you get caught up with life. Life starts to happen, right? And it's really intimidating and confusing for most people because they don't have a background in that field. Most people are riding the roller coaster and are literally crossing their fingers, hoping that their retirement's on the upside. Yet Wall Street is teaching everybody, hey, the market always goes up, but does it really? Again, you can look at historicals, you could even follow some of your accounts, and you could see that most people are passive investors. They're just riding through that roller coaster, again, crossing their fingers, hoping that they are going to retire on the upside. But not to mention, have you thought about actually that roller coaster that might take place during your retirement phase? I've seen in the recent past where people lost half their income because they were in the market and they were receiving a certain percentage during their withdrawal phase of their retirement. Most people don't feel that they're saving enough, and they have no idea what it takes to actually get there. I just mentioned that earlier, but one of the biggest stresses that, again, people also have is outliving their money. And at rates that I've seen people taking out money, it's crazy. It's mind-blowing to think when you have a conversation with someone and you tell them very, in a kind way, hey, you're going to run out of money within the next 8 to 10 years based on the amount of money that you're taking out. How does that feel? And so it's very stressful for a lot of people. It's almost like people are walking that quiet life of desperation, kind of turning the cheek, hoping that somehow there's going to be this invisible net that's going to catch them during that retirement. So if you were to open up your brokerage statements right now, your 401ks, your 403bs, your pretty much any retirement plan, or even just funds you might have in stocks or mutual funds, do you feel excited about it? Are you optimistic? Do you feel content, confused, frustrated, nervous, angry, fearful, out of control, hopeless? If you're like most, again, I'm gonna share this. Sometimes when I sit with clients, I'm opening up their statement, really their envelope, right in front of them for the first time, because they just put them aside. They don't look at it. They're too nervous. Maybe it's just too confusing, or they're intimidated by it. So my question to you is, from a scale from 0 to 10, how comfortable do you feel about reading your statements and really clearly understanding what's going on within your different portfolios? So here's a major roadblock that people are facing, and it's volatility. And volatility literally equals fear of loss. It's the ups and downs in the market. What goes up comes down. Right now, we're at a time where, all the experts are saying that we're at a peak, that we're possibly at a state where the bubble might burst and the market might go down. I can't predict it, neither can anybody. But the point is that people are always trying to market time or trying to, buy low and sell high. That's what everyone says, right? But if everyone knew that, then everybody would be pretty wealthy, right? And so volatility is literally fear of loss. So let's look at some returns. In this example, we're going to look at some historicals of the S&P 500, which are the Standard & Poor's 500, the top 500 performing companies in the U.S. And this is taking historical returns from 1999 to 2018. If you were to invest $100,000, this is exactly the trajectory that you would have gone through if you would have been in the market. So notice these negative returns here from 2000 to 2003. Notice this huge one, which was in 2008, where people almost lost about 50% of their accounts, if not more. And in some cases, it was it was a huge blow for people that some people never recovered from. You look at now, even more recently, some of these negative returns. So one of the biggest things that people don't talk about enough is the downside. The negative side can really drastically affect you, because one of the things that we all have in common as human beings is that we have time as one of the common things that we have. And none of us can go back in time and recoup the loss in time. So if you look from 2000 to 2003, when the market went down for 3 years in a row, if you would have stayed invested in the market, it would have literally took you to get to the same point. It would have took you quite a bit of years to just catch up to those years of loss. I mean, we could follow this, but people again are following that roller coaster, those ups and downs. So there is power in zero. And what does that exactly mean? That means that if you could get the positive returns and lock them in and not participate in any of the negatives, wouldn't that sound pretty appealing? Well, there's programs that offer that, where you could get market-like return up to a certain point and you don't participate in any of the negatives. Imagine being able to participate in that type of a program. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what's the catch? Well, obviously there's always the flip side of the coin is that you're not going to get the full home run if the market does extremely well. But the beautiful part is you're never going to get a negative return. You're always going to have principal protection. And that's a huge key when it comes to your retirement. A lot of my affluent clients, what they have is they may participate and have monies in the stocks and mutual funds, but a large percentage of their money, when it comes to their retirement, they want to secure that and make sure that they're going to get there comfortably, especially if you worked for a company 20 plus years or so, or even 10 or whatever it is. You've saved your money inside of some type of a retirement plan, say for instance a 401k, and it took you years to accumulate what you've built. So wouldn't you want to protect that and have that, being certain to make sure that it's going to be there when you go to retire? Absolutely, right? So there's ways to protect what you built. And the way these programs work, retirement accounts, is just how you put in a little bit of money over the years. That's the way you should be taking out as well, is in the form of income, a little bit of money over the years. And obviously the more you save, the more you're going to have. So what's the catch with these types of programs? It all depends on the crediting strategy that you're participating in. You could go fixed, you could go monthly point to point, you could go annual average. There's so many different types. There's even other accounts that are that they mirror that are not just the S&P 500. It could be the Dow Jones. So there's a variation depending on the company, depending on what they're offering within their programs. The benefits of a fixed index annuity. So I want to share with you some of these benefits and why you'd want to participate in one. And it doesn't matter how young you are or how old you are. You got to find the right company that's going to provide the right type of annuity that suits you. So they're all different. A lot of different companies offer different bells and whistles, but I'm going to give you more of a general overview of how these indexed or these fixed index annuities work. It's going to provide income preservation, which is huge. Just on that alone, people have literally moved millions and millions of dollars because they cannot stomach the idea of losing money, especially when I just mentioned, you've taken years to build it, you need to protect it. There's also growth opportunities, which are very attractive. And then there's income distribution opportunities, which will guarantee you income for the rest of your life, which is extremely attractive. In fact, it's inside of annuities that it's the only place that in contract you could have these guarantees of income for the rest of your life, which is a huge, huge benefit. So you have principal protection, which means contract guaranteed principal protection. You lock in your gains. So every year the gains are locked in. Interest credited to the contract cannot be lost, and your annual growth will never be less than zero due to the index volatility. Index crediting strategy options formula is used to determine the interest credited to the contract based on the performance of an external indexed. Guaranteed rates. You could also have a fixed rate if you choose to, and the annual rate set at issue and guaranteed for a set period of time. You have also tax deferral. Your money grows tax deferred prior to the first income payments. Income payment as well, and you get to choose whether you're going to do it as a joint life or as a single life. So there's different ways to take income. So there's a lump sum regularly scheduled payments, and then there's rider options. So again, every different company offers different riders. My suggestion, if you're going to, that I would do for income purposes, is going to get an income rider so that you could guarantee yourself at bare minimum an income that you're going to receive income for the rest of your life. Guaranteed income, lifetime income payments, and increased payments for care-related cost available. So some companies will offer a rider that in case if you became chronically ill, for instance, if it qualifies, then your income will double. That would be one example if that's during your retirement phase. So let me share with you an example of an annuity or an index annuity, so you can kind of see the way it works. If you look at the blue line, this is the minimum guaranteed contract value. So that means if you went fixed, if you took $100,000, but from 1998 all the way to the end of 2016, you would have $170,000. If you look at the red one, if you're fully participating in the market in the S&P 500, if you were in that type of a fund, then you would be, moving along with a red path, which at the end of this trajectory, you'd be at 206,700, which is a lot better, right? It's better than the minimum guarantee. But again, depends on when you were trying to retire during these years. There's a lot of more variables that go along with that, right? But when you look at this trajectory of these historicals, it obviously ends up a little bit more than the linear path. If you look at now the green line, this is going to be an index strategy. And with this company, they're sharing with you that their indexed strategy that they use for their program here with their indexed annuity. And if you notice, the green one's actually a little bit higher. It's at 223,000. And this is because you're eliminating the zeros. Even with putting a maximum that you could earn on a yearly basis, even at that rate, it still ends up on top in this example. Let me simplify this a little bit more because that could look a little intimidating, right, or a little complex. So here's some basics on how the index annuity would work. I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say you're 50 years old and you have $100,000 you put in this account, and your goal is to retire at age 65. What's the absolute worst thing that can happen if you were in the market? Well, you could lose your money, right? You could totally go down and end up at zero. You could totally be aggressive and lose your money. Well, at bare minimum, worst case scenario, if you just went into a fixed annuity, you're going to at least have your $100,000 at age 65. So this is pretty powerful in its own because principal protection day one, right? You can never lose money there. Now, what I would suggest, and this is what's very popular right now, that's the newer types of annuities, they offer what's called a withdrawal benefit income rider or an income rider. And this is to guarantee at least a certain amount of money based on a different roll-up rate. And these roll-up rates in this example is 5%. That means your money is compounding at 5% per year, but it's technically a value that's called the withdrawal benefit or income benefit rider value. And this value is for income calculation purposes only. So if you decide at age 65 in this example that you want to withdraw all your money from this account, what do you think they're going to give you? The withdrawal rate, the withdrawal value, which is the one in green, which is 207, or the $100,000? You're going to actually take your $100,000 if you cancel out this account and take all your money, because the withdrawal rate or the withdrawal value is for, again, income calculation purposes only. So in this scenario, when you go to take income, they're going to look at the two values and they're going to give you income based on the higher of the two. So most annuities, what they have is what's called an income withdrawal rate. Some companies will be from, say, 4% or even 3.5% all the way up to, in this example, say 5.5%. Let's just assume, you're getting 5% of this. So you could actually calculate, and I'll share with you a little bit further how that would look like. but you'll be guaranteed lifetime income for the rest of your life. So let's assume now that the performance of the actual index strategy based around the S&P 500, let's say it averaged at 6%. So it did a little bit better than your income rider rate. So obviously the value here is shown at 239,000. So when they look at the two, it's almost like there's a race, right? You have that safety net, which is that income rider value, which is in green, and then you have your actual performance. Whether a worst case scenario, it stayed the same at 100, obviously the green one's higher, so you're going to take income based on that one. But in this case, let's just say it was on the orange color, which is the actual account value because it performed at 6, you'll get a higher income for the rest of your life, which is pretty powerful. So right now I'm going to just share with you what it would look like based on the green one, which is the lifetime income. In this scenario, if you actually achieve the orange value, it would be a higher income because it's based on that value. But at worst case scenario, rain or shine, it doesn't matter how the S&P performs. At worst case, you're going to at least have that roll-up rate at 5%, and you know what you could take to the penny every single year when you decide to retire. If you decide to retire at 65, well, in this example, you're going to get $13,513.03 per year for the rest of your life. And even if the account goes to zero eventually because you lived a long life, if the account goes to zero, that contract is still obligated and will still continue to pay you for the rest of your life those $13,500, which is super powerful. Only inside of an annuity can you actually have that without losing control of your money, because that's probably one of the things, well, do I lose control of my money? You don't. You just have control. If there's a balance left over and you pass away, guess what? The balance goes on to your beneficiaries of whoever you choose as your beneficiaries. If you take it as a joint income, you're going to get a little bit less income per year because you're basing it on 2 lives. So if you pass away and you want your spouse to continue to get the same dollar amount, then it's going to be a little bit less per year, but you could do it based on 2 lives or based on a single life. This one right here is based on a single life. So this is kind of a macro view, basics on how it works. So what are some of the negatives? Because we also got to look at that side, right? If there was any negative, it would be what's called a surrender period. Depending if you could get, your time horizon, let's say that you go into a 10-year or a 13-year surrender period, but yet you're going to need access to your money and you might withdraw it all. You don't want to get into a long surrender period, because if you plan on taking out all your money, then you're going to pay a penalty for surrendering that account. So it must fit your time horizon and liquidity goals. The great news is that all these accounts go through thorough underwriting and suitability. So when you're working with a professional, you obviously have to let them know what your actual goals are with that money. And you also have to be in a good liquid state so that you don't lock up all your money. That would be a very negative thing if your situation might change and you know it's going to change, or you're going to need access to that money, but yet you lock it all up. You can't do that. It wouldn't even pass suitability. So withdrawal rates are very important as well. So I always tell people, if you may get a nice bonus from a company and the numbers may look beautiful on paper, but at the end of the day, if you're doing this for income, don't you want to maximize your income? So it's really what's going into your bank account every single year for the rest of your life. So you want to have the best withdrawal rate on the back end so that you can have the most income. So be aware of that. So you can look at that closely. Index crediting opportunities. And when you're looking at those index crediting opportunities, pay close attention to the index participation percentage and the asset fees, if there's any. So an example of that, because I know it sounds kind of technical, but an example of this is, let's just say a company is advertising, hey, there's no upside caps. That means there's no ceiling. You could earn, if the S&P does 20%, well, guess what? You could potentially earn, sky's the limit. But then when you look at the fine print and it's only participating 30%, that means that if you earn, say it performed at 10% and you multiply that by 30%, that means you're only going to get 3%. Not to mention that if there's an asset fee, you got to multiply the asset fee to that as well. So those are little things. So I'm just saying these things so that you could ask the right questions when you're sitting with that professional, so they could give you all the best options so that you could make the best educated decision for yourself. So make sure you have liquidity in case of emergency. I mentioned that earlier. The good news is that all of this goes through suitability. So there's many different types out there, and you want to sit with somebody that is not attached to any one company, one that is going to represent you. And that's one thing that we take a lot of pride in at Difference, is that we always tell our clients, hey, we work for you. It's whatever company best fits you. Whichever program is going to get you, it's the one that benefits you the most that we're going to go with. So what type of money goes in, can participate in one of these fixed index annuities? Well, any type of retirement money. You could roll over any retirement account, for instance, like a 401k, 457, 403b, IRAs, Roths, pensions, thrift savings plans, tax sheltered annuities, tax deferred plans, any type of retirement plan. In fact, any type of money, if it's coming from a savings account or a CD, you could put into these types of accounts. So we just wrapped that up. So meet with the financial professional, make sure, or an insurance professional, make sure that you qualify for one of these plans, that if you have assets that are just sitting there, so they could do illustrations for you, make sure they share with you different types of different examples, different companies, and then that way you can make the best decision on what's going to fit your goals. So hope you got some value from today. I know I jumped into some technical parts of it, and that's why it's so important that you sit with somebody before you just dive in and get any type of annuity, so that it makes total sense for you, especially when it comes to your retirement. But I highly, highly recommend these types of strategies, because it's going to give you peace of mind. It's going to give you those guarantees that you need when you're taking retirement for the rest of your life. We'll see you in the next one, and I thank you again for viewing.